So, the Nobel Prize in Literature has a new laureate, Laszlo Krasznahorkai. Now, if you've never heard of him, hey, you are not alone. So today, we're going to unpack the work of this really singular, challenging, and visionary writer.
To get a feel for his reputation, you only need to hear what the legendary critic Susan Sontag said about him. She called him contemporary literature's master of the apocalypse. Wow! I mean, that is a heavy title, and it perfectly sets the stage for the kind of worlds he creates.
So, that's the big question, right? Who is this guy? And how does a vision so focused on the apocalypse land him a Nobel Prize?
And get this, he is the sole recipient. The Nobel Committee didn't split the prize this year. Nope, they decided his contribution stands entirely and powerfully on its own. And that singular status, well, that's our first clue to understanding his work.
Okay, so to really get what that apocalypse label is all about, we have to step right into the worlds he builds. And let me tell you, these are worlds that are perpetually on the edge of just coming apart.
Let's look at his two early masterpieces. You've got Satan Tango, which is set on this desolate, rain-soaked collective farm in Hungary, a place where the whole utopian promise is just rotted into mud and despair. Then there's The Melancholy of Resistance, which takes place in a small town that's just sliding into total anarchy. Both places are remote, bleak, and feel like they're teetering on the verge of utter collapse.
And you start to see these common threads running through his worlds. You've got these decaying communities, the arrival of some strange, charismatic figure. You're not sure if he's a prophet or a total con man. And then these bizarre, almost supernatural events like a circus showing up with the carcass of a giant whale that just pushes society right over the edge. The feeling you get is just this constant, suffocating dread.
But look, it's not just what he writes about, it's how he writes. His unique style is absolutely crucial to the whole experience, and honestly, it's what truly sets him apart.
He's famous for what people have called the Krasznahorkai sentence. We're talking about these incredibly long, winding sentences that can go on for pages without a single period. So when you're reading his work, you're not just passively taking it in. No, you're pulled into this breathless, continuous current of thought. You actually feel trapped inside the character's consciousness, which mirrors the dizzying state of emergency they're living in. For him, the style is the substance.
And what this does is create this almost unbearable sense of anticipation. His characters are always waiting for something to save them, for some kind of miracle to happen. But, and this is the kicker, Krasznahorkai makes it brutally clear, often from the very first page, that this hope is a fantasy. Any chance of salvation is absolutely destined to fail. Okay, so we've got apocalyptic settings and sentences designed to give you anxiety. But just when you think you have them all figured out, his work takes a completely different and pretty surprising turn.
And that brings up the obvious question. Is it all just bleakness? Is there anything else in his universe besides dread and collapse? Well, the answer is a surprising and resounding yes.
See, Krasznahorkai traveled a lot in East Asia, and these journeys really changed his writing. He started to explore a totally different side of existence, this quiet, contemplative search for beauty, and the incredible, transcendent power of creating art.
His other major work, Seobo There Below, is the perfect example of this shift. It's built around a Japanese myth about a goddess whose fruit can grant you immortality. But Krasznahorkai flips this idea. For him, the truly immortal act is the creation of a perfect work of art. And so the book follows this almost sacred process, jumping across centuries and different cultures.
And there's this one unforgettable scene in the book that describes a pure white heron just standing perfectly still in a river in Kyoto, waiting. It's totally invisible to the crowds of people rushing by, and it becomes this powerful, elusive symbol for the artist, completely focused and serene, right in the middle of all the chaos of the world. It's such a stunning contrast to the frenzy of his earlier work.
So this brings us to our final section where we're going to put these two very different halves of his work, the apocalyptic and the contemplative, together.
This is the key puzzle of his entire career, really. How can the master of the apocalypse also be this writer who's obsessed with the serene creation of beauty? I mean, how do these two sides possibly fit together?
Here they are, side by side. On one hand, you have the absolute terror of a world falling apart, and on the other, the profound, almost redeeming power of art. They just seem like complete opposites, right?
Well, the answer lies right there in the official Nobel Prize motivation. It praises him for an oeuvre that, in the midst of apocalyptic terror, reaffirms the power of art. And that's the key. It's not one or the other. The art doesn't exist despite the terror, it exists because of it. The very act of creation within the chaos is precisely what gives it its meaning and its power.
And that leaves us with a final, really powerful thought. Krasnahorkai's entire life's work seems to be asking this one question, again and again. In a world that's defined by collapse and confusion, where and how do we find the focus, the grace, and the will to create something beautiful and lasting? His profound answer to that question is what won him the Nobel.